Yes.
People say R.I.P. by Calligraph. Yeah.
Okay.
It's a favorite too. So
Okay, so, and you're here at the masterclass. What are you looking to learn from the professionals that are on stage here?
I'm looking to learn a thing or two, and also maybe interact and network with people like you.
Yeah, yes.
And them, even the light guy here.
The guys behind the camera, you know, sisi, unajua tumeshika melanin, so if it wasn't for the guy with the light, we couldn't be seen. Yeah, and I like, maybe, nikaribia kidogo. And I like the fact that Coke Studio Africa insists that it's a collaborative process, because you as a music video director, it's not just you behind the lens or behind the computer editing. There's a whole industry that surrounds us. Like, tell me about some of the key people on a Johnson Charlo music video set.
The key people I can say like my lighting guy, Grip, very many people. Like we are usually like 6 people minimum on set. So I have quite a team.
So when Coke Studio Africa tells you that this whole thing, it's an entire industry bringing together so many people, you understand that?
Yeah, I do understand because it's always a team. You can never do it alone in such an industry where there are so many key areas like lighting, camera work, editing, coloring. We are so many.
So we have many artists from all over Africa that are going to be on Coke Studio Africa 2019. They're actually in Nairobi right now. They're doing I don't even think they'll have time to come here because we are working them hard to deliver that new season. Who would you, because we have Naiboy, we have Calligraph, we have Rayvanny, we have Rude Boy, who would you be most interested in working with, like doing a music video for or with?
Among the list, I've worked with Calligraph. I'm about to work with Naiboy.
Yes.
So any other international artists,
Okay.
especially hip-hop artists, because I'm a big fan of hip-hop videos. In fact, that's why I do well. So any hip-hop artist, I don't know whether Sarkodie is a part of it.
No, maybe 2020. But yeah, so you would actually want to see if we're going to send us suggestions, because my bosses from Coke, they're watching this right now from all over the world. So if we want to give them a suggestion, you want Sarkodie on the next edition?
Sarkodie on the next edition. I believe he has been there before. I'm wrong?
I will have to confirm. Mr. Producer? Okay, as he gets back to me right now, I'll have to confirm. And then finally, before I let you go, because I think that they've already started, Ezekiel Mutua just started up, the CEO of the KFCB. Before he gets finished with the speech, so before they start the official process, maybe 2 questions. Coke Baridi or Fanta Baridi? That's my first question. Would you prefer a cold Coca-Cola or a warm Fanta or a Stony? I don't know which one is your drink. And then finally, what's maybe one thing that what's one thing that you would love to specifically learn from here today? So answer the first one. Would you want a cold Coke or a warm Coca-Cola for a hot day?
Good. A Coke is good.
A warm one or a cold one?
A cold one, definitely.
Definitely. And what's one main thing you look to take away from this whole process?
Mostly, I hope we'll touch on the legal matters affecting filmmaking, especially licensing, especially on the big issue of drones. Now that Mutua is here, I hope we will touch on that.
Please, because this is a masterclass, it's a very interactive process, so actually the audience members will be able to ask their questions, and also you guys watching at home on Facebook, on YouTube, you can send us your questions at Coke. I'm going to read the handles you just now after Bonachalo leaves, but you can also be a part of this process and ask us the questions that you want us to steer towards them. So you're going to ask about especially drones, because drone videography is beautiful.
Very gray area when it comes to the legal matters.
So this is
when a cop finds you shooting, we don't have a good legal structure. Where we should get the licenses, etc., how much they should cost. So I hope we touch on that.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, Bonachalo, and enjoy the masterclass. Okay, that was Bona Johnson Charlo, one of the participants here at the Coke Studio Africa 2019 masterclass. Now, so Mr. Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the KFCB, is on stage right now doing an introduction, I believe. And I know Mr. Mutua, he has a lot to say specifically about this masterclass in terms of its dealing with film production and music production in Kenya relating to Coke Studio Africa. But let's jump into the hall right now and see how that's going.
To become a true mirror of society, to talk about us, to inspire us, to give us hope, and to build the Africa that we want. An Africa full of hope, Africa that is full of aspiration, Africa that is cohesive, Africa that speaks one language, Africa that can rally together to overcome the challenges ahead of us. Thank you very much, and may God bless you. Enjoy the afternoon. Asanteni sana.
Asante sana, Bwana CEO. Ezekiel Mutua, thank you so much for that address. All right, before I invite our panelists up on the stage, I just want to thank a few people. If you'll allow me to just arrange my electronics. Yes, we'd like to thank a few people again who have been instrumental partners in enabling Coke.
And you're back with me, Charlie Karomi, outside the hall where we are holding the Coke Studio Africa 2019 Masterclass. That was Bwana Ezekiel Mutua, the CEO of the KFCB, giving his opening remarks. But let's keep the show going because, as I told you, we have a lot of industry professionals with us today. We've just heard from Bwana Johnson Chalo, renowned, acclaimed music video director. And we have someone now joining us on set who would be one of his clients to create a very amazing music video. We have Bwana Dan Aseda. I see ya. Karibu. Don't be shy. Habari yako?
Mambo.
Poa sana. I see you in the Pace Studio headphones. They're looking fresh. They're looking good.
Sijalipwa.
Haujalipwa. I love the detail that you've put. Camera, can we get that detail? We're getting that detail. Is that your unique Dan Aseda, like, mark? Like, easy as easy BY. If someone steals them, you'll know they're yours.
Yes, BY zinzangu. Okay. But it's done by Fadhili Tulia.
They look really amazing. How are you doing, Dan? How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, how are you?
I am chilling. Nice to see you. Although you're making me look bad, you have this Coke swagger going, like your hat matches our backdrop. You're like, you are ready.
Nah, man, this is just Sunday. It's just how we do it on Sunday.
Sunday best. So we're here for the Coke Studio Africa 2019 Masterclass, and we're just bringing together the heads of department at Coke Studio because Coke gets the best of the best to run Coke Studio Africa. What's one thing you think that you are going to learn from here today? Is there anything you expect to learn?
Yeah, I think it's good. Anytime you have an opportunity to listen to people who are working in the industry, yes, it's always good. Of course, we've been working in the industry also, and we think that we know, but the thing is we're always learning. I think the guys that are coming here to speak have a lot of experience. Yes. There's a lot of stuff that I can learn from them for my own business, so I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. And how's the music business going in Kenya? Your specialty is Benga?
Yeah.
Yes. Tell us about how the music business is going in Kenya.
No, I think it's good. We're in a good spot now. There's a lot of change, especially in the way that music is being distributed.
Yes.
Because at the beginning, if you remember, there used to be gatekeeping. There used to be guys who were holding the playlist and you couldn't get in.
And you're not talking about DJ Pinye?
No, I'm not talking about him. He's in the past. Right now, it's way open. So a lot of young artists are coming in. They're getting new audiences. It's moving. It's growing. So it's a good place right now. So people, if they're willing to invest, yes, and they're willing to do well, I think you have every opportunity to succeed now. And
what Coke Studio Africa we're doing is we're bringing together different artists from different genres, different eras, different regions. We're trying to create that unique, African sound. What do you think about that? Like, what country would you really want to go and collaborate with, and who have you already collaborated with?
I think, first of all, collaborations is the way to go. Yeah. That's the only thing that you can see in the last 10 years in the music industry. Yes. Solo acts and solo songs are less. So now it's always about the collaboration. So that's definitely the way to go. I've been working with some guys from Uganda already. I did some work with somebody from Niger. But my opinion right now, and of course I did the song with Etana from Jamaica, yes, and now she just got nominated for the Grammys.
What?
That's also good news. Nice. So, like I'm saying, every opportunity you have to work with somebody else who comes from a different culture, it's always a fantastic opportunity. You'll learn a lot, you'll grow your own craft, and then you get access to a different audience. So, ni kitu kizuri. I hope people can take it up and keep going.
Okay. And then before I let you go, Coke Studio Africa, we're doing an exclusive Christmas playlist, with all our stars. And I'm thinking, Calligraph Jones, can you imagine? Oh, we're about to begin. I'm being told we're about to begin. I'll ask you that question off here. Bwana Mugambi is in the hall. So Mugambi Nthiga, the host of the masterclass, over to you. So, Bwana Mugambi Nthiga, he's actually inside right now running the masterclass. So, without any further ado, Dan, tutaendelea kuongea, but Mugambi, over to you. I just get the first outro.
Line producers don't know how to switch on mics.
For the culture. All right. Ladies and gentlemen on the internet, welcome to the Coke Studio Africa Masterclass. We know we have people joining us from YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you so much for joining us. Just in case you have no idea what's happening here, we're going to be having very, very spirited conversation about putting together Coke Studio Africa. Why does it exist to start with? What does it take to get a show of that scale on our screens? And what do we have planned for Coke Studio Africa in 2019? Very quickly, for the sake of those who are watching from home, I'd like to introduce the panel again. The Creative Director of Coke Studio Africa, Mr. Tim Horwood. The Series Director, Mr. Eugene Naidu. That's right. Arthur Kay, the Talent Manager, Coke Studio Africa. Caroline Gesser, the Line Producer, Coke Studio Africa. And finally, Mr. Wesley Masilo, who's the Content Director. Karibuni sana, welcome, welcome, welcome. So, all I did was give the titles as far as Coke Studio Africa goes, but I know outside of Coke Studio Africa, you have very thriving lives and industries. So, very quickly, starting from here, if you could give us a brief idea of what you do, generally in life, and how your journey has led you to Coke Studio Africa. We'll start here.
Cool. For those of you that missed it, I'm Eugene. It's been a long journey. I've been in the industry just over 25 years. Although I know I don't look it.
You do?
Not at all.
Yeah, so I started off in the industry. Well, my career started off with a formal education in music. So I've got a Bachelor of Arts degree in music. And I couldn't make it as a musician. It's the truth. But I also knew that I couldn't work in the formal industry working a 9-to-5 job. It wasn't me. So I worked in theater for a little bit, so I've got a bit of a theatrical background. I know how a theater works. And then my love for the arts kept me there. But I knew I needed to settle down and have a family. And at that time, the only thing that seemed plausible as a career was to kind of join television. It wasn't really a last resort choice, but it was more kind of having two worlds meet. And I'm sure there's a lot of people in the room that will also bear testament to the fact that if you're in this industry, you're kind of stuck in two worlds. You're a little bit creative and you're a little bit technical, and at some point you got to decide which road you take. And every time I try to take a creative road, I got stuck because I really enjoyed technical. And every time I try to take a technical road, I got stuck and kind of wanted to go to creative. So the position I have now, people call me technical director, people call me series director, all sorts. Essentially what it is I'm just a guy who kind of understands production and all its little bits and how it's meant to come together. So studied music, got into television, studied the technical side of TV, and then started to ply my trade as a technical director. And I've done that for years. My forte is live television programs, and in particular, multi-camera live television programs. So if you've watched things like the World Cup opening ceremony for soccer, there had to be someone directing it behind the scenes, and that would have been someone that looked like me. A little bit younger, but looked like me. I've done lots of international formats, so I have a lot of international experience, so I have a wide open mind, and hopefully that's going to help us today. But essentially, my forte is understanding things technical around television, understanding the different components and how they come together, and speaking to, I guess, the overall of how the pieces fit together in a puzzle to make one picture that we all recognize as a TV show. Cool?
Cool. So I'm Tim. I started in the industry from a very young age, from about 10 years old. I was in front of the camera, acting in television shows in South Africa. So I sort of grew up in the medium, and it just became second nature. And I knew from the very first day that I got involved in television that this was what I was going to do for the rest of my life. It was very clear to me. And I started, like I said, in front of the camera, and then I was very interested in the technical side. To Eugene's point, you start to figure out how things are made. So I used to volunteer during my high school days as an assistant on television shoots. So as much as being a celebrity, I was also carrying the tripod and rolling cables and swinging the boom, and I learned that way as well until I got to the end of high school, and then I had the opportunity to study, but I was so sick and tired of studying from 6 years old until 18 years old that I actually decided I didn't want to study. And I realized that a television career, what you'd be learning was kind of like practical, technical things. And the experience I had up to that point, I'd already had 10 years in the industry, I had learned these things already. So I decided not to study, and to this day, I haven't studied since I left high school at 18. And as much as that isn't advice to give to young people trying to get in the industry, I think it is also a relief for people who haven't studied, that you actually don't have to study. And even now, when over the years when I've applied for sort of big high-power jobs and they say you have to have a minimum, whatever, bachelor's, whatever, I'm always like, I'm able to prove that I know more than people who study just from practical experience. And I think that is something in our industry to take note.
Yeah. It's very comforting for people in the room.
Sure. But good advice.
Me included.
So I sort of got into the industry that way and have worked my way up from being a camera assistant to a camera operator to an editor to a scriptwriter to a director to a producer. The position to not a technical person, so I referred to my technical director to help with the mic, to now basically sort of being and I guess this industry is like this, these titles kind of box you in, but I think all of us, you have to multitask in this industry. So, I was part of the team that launched the MTV brand in Africa back in 2005. Before that point, I'd been making television shows, and coincidentally, it had always been in a space where music and television meet. So I used to do like live Friday night music shows. That's where Eugene and I met many years ago, 20 years ago. And then I was part of the team that launched MTV and went on from directing the first... That was my DJ scratch move.
Oh, wow.
Directing the first show that MTV made in Africa to then becoming the channel head of MTV for some years. So that was after about an 8-year journey inside the MTV stable. Then I headed up the MTV-based brand in Africa for a few years, without a degree, thank you. Just with swag, it's all you need, the right swag. And then 3 years ago I left that and have been working with Coke Studio since then as kind of like overseeing the creative of the show, which starts from sort of designing the format. And pretty much everything I do I can't claim because I do it in collaboration with a lot of people who you see here today mostly as well. But designing the format, and just overseeing the content creation, being very much involved in the artists, the music, the scripting, the content, the direction. So sort of touching on all elements of a production and overseeing that sort of one unified vision and one unified creative quality is maintained across the shows. That's kind of like what I do.
All right, thank you so much. So far, are we feeling, yes, a hand for him, please, a hand for both of them. I don't know what the feeling in the room is, but the feeling from my point of view now is it's so comforting how every artistic story is similar, right? So many of us in this room are self-taught. So many of us have been in a room where our papers didn't seem adequate, but we knew that we were more than capable of doing the job. And I'm so glad that this is a universal story going on. Thank you. Arthur K., go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Arthur K. For those who don't know me, aka Mopao.
Wow.
What he didn't say is that, I don't know whether you guys remember Channel O. There was a guy with dreadlocks when it started. That was Tim. Yeah, he was a presenter on Channel O. You didn't say that. Yeah. Anyway, my journey. My journey starts at Nation Media Group in 2001. I'm actually 18 years old now in the entertainment industry. At Nation, I started producing The Beat and The Stomp, the gospel show that everybody copied after that. And now we have gospel shows in all secular TV stations. I worked on The Beat with Pinye for many years. In 2005, MTV came into Kenya, and they partnered with Nation, and I ended up working with MTV from then. I was working for Nation and MTV at the same time because they were in a kind of partnership.
You didn't tell us that.
Yeah, so Tim has been my boss since then at MTV, and I think for me that's when I can say my wings to fly really popped out into the African market, and I was introduced to the experience and to the networking and to the connections and the whole, I can say, life teachings of entertainment world beyond my country, Kenya. At MTV, I was the talent rep in Kenya, which later grew into East Africa. And we did a lot of projects that some originated here in Kenya. And one project, I don't know, and where is it? Mheshimiwa, we need to bring back sugar here. The sugar story started here. It was built here. It was created by our own actors, and it's our story.
It's
and
actually
exactly. Actually, Lupita started off with us at MTV when we were doing making the video with Shell. That's when we discovered her. Then after that, when we were doing Sugar, we all remembered her from making the video with Shell, and we said, there's a role here that she fits in. So we need to find a way of bringing back that story back home. So the Mamas, actually we did the MTV Music Awards, and to date, I can tell you guys, everyone says the Mamas in Kenya was the best and still remains to be the best. When we did MTV making the video with Shell, what again we don't realize is we are the country that won. It was a competition between 4 countries, Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa. And again, we won that under my tenure. Anyway, so later, Coke Studio came, and that's how we are here. Thanks to Coke, we are now working on Coke Studio. Apart from that, for those of you who know, I can see my fellow producer here of Sue and Johnny. I'm currently the producer of Pambio Live on Maisha Magic East. I'm also the producer of The Hit on NTV, and I'm also the producer of Dunda Mix. So I run the music world in Kenya. I'm playing.
To put it modestly.
Yeah. As the talent, because of my experience, my networking and support from everyone who I've worked with, I've been able to create very strong and reliable networks with artists all over Africa. And I think that's why I'm seated here as the talent manager for Coke Studio Africa. Your fellow Kenyan is the talent manager on Coke Studio Africa.
Good job, Arthur. Arthur Unajua, I just need to comment on something. When I went to high school, there was the guys with whom you'd make noise during prep time, and you would go back to the dorms to sleep, and then they'd stay up studying. You're the equivalent of that, because we used to be in the club with you back in 2004, and I thought we were on the same level. Kumbe you were going home to do all these things now. I had no idea your CV was so extensive, so it's wonderful to hear that. Thank you, Arthur K. On to Caroline Gesser.
Hi, everyone. Hi. Okay, so with regard to my journey, I think I started in the industry in 2005, but I used to do things small time. I was like an all-in-one package, so doing documentaries, scripting, operating the camera, editing, and in some instances doing the voiceover narration for my clients, which were mostly NGOs. And then towards 2007, I think I can just say I moved to Nairobi, and I've had an opportunity to work with different shops, and that has also enhanced my skills in the production industry. So I've I've had an opportunity to work with or on a lot of international productions, huge really, and I think that those are some of the experiences that have helped me and enhanced my skills that has made me one of the best line producers in the country that is working on Coke Studio Africa.
Go ahead and blow that horn. Yes, yes.
Yes, so I've worked with many directors, local and international, and some productions you may know, some you may not know. My first big production, but that was when I was working with Ginger Inc. TV, was a British commercial, recruitment commercial, and we had over 200 crew, local and international. And beyond that, I've also had an opportunity to work with a lot of other big international productions and local productions. And I think coming on to work as a line producer, it's a combination of things, right? I started at an entry level. So I was the one they used to send for coffee, and when you come and the coffee's cold, yeah, you're in trouble. You're getting fired. I don't know how many times I was fired on set because the coffee was late. But I learned from that, and I knew that everything is urgent in a production. It's not glam as it looks on TV. Behind the camera, behind the scenes, is like you have to get your hands dirty, you have to get the work done. And I also learned the discipline that is required to survive in this industry, because I've been in the industry for over 10 years. So line producing, what does that entail? I basically crunch the numbers. So, and it comes with understanding what the creative is, what the creative vision is, and being able to break down those elements and to cost them and to just support the creative to achieve that vision. And sometimes we fight about what they want, when they want us to deliver the world, but we say, okay, the world versus this, what will you have? So it's been an incredible journey, even working on Coke Studio, but it is the skills that I have acquired from working in different productions over the years that has prepared me to work on Coke Studio. There are a lot of things that happen on Coke Studio or in Coke Studio, and you just have to be really, really organized. You have to know what needs to happen where, what are the elements. So there's Tim, there's Eugene, there's Wesley, there's Arthur. They all want everything at the same time, but how do you manage them? And it's always urgent. It's always urgent, and it has to be done now. So how do you manage the team? And how do you make sure that your budget works within the period of time that you have been commissioned to execute the project, and do you have the right talent for the project? And I can say so far, so good. We have the best talent, both locally and internationally for this project, and I believe that translates in what you see on the screen. And I can just say it's gonna be good from now on.
Right. Thank you very much, Caroline Gesser. Yes, a hand for her as well. And finally, let's hear from the content director, Mr. Wesley Takosa.
It's actually Wesley Masilo Makamata. Try it.
Wesley Masilo
Makamata.
Sorry, my mic just cut off as I was saying it. Makamata.
Yeah.
All right, got it.
Cool. So, unlike Tim, I went and I tried to get a degree in television and filmmaking at Wits University. And unlike Carol, I really didn't want to serve coffee on set. And I wanted to make reality TV shows. That was my mission in life. So my second job in the industry when I left school was content director on Survivor South Africa, which was a big deal at the time. And ever since then, I'd been making reality shows like Idols and The Voice, all that kind of stuff. So on Coke Studio, my role is to create content. And it's not always easy because Coke Studio is many different languages, people from different places. But, oof, I've just blanked out there.
Take two.
Take two. Take two.
And action.
Asante sana. Okay, cool. So I've also been learning a lot of Swahili. So basically, let me go back to what when I left school, I went and I did a lot of reality shows, like I explained. But the past 5 years of my life, I spent developing content. My role was to create fresh, new reality shows, hyper-local shows for South Africa. And I'm known for creating new shows. So in South Africa currently, I have the Sunday primetime television shows like Date My Family. I don't know if you guys have those shows, like the wedding shows like that. I've got about 5 shows that have been going for the past 5 years that have been so successful, hyper local content. So after creating big international format shows as a format creator, my job and what I really love to do is to do hyper local content. And I met Timo while I was doing The Voice, and then that's how I ended up on Coke Studio.
That's wonderful. A hand to our panel. I'm very, very, very excited. We obviously have some heavy hitters here, people doing some amazing stuff. You've been in the industry for a while. All of you look much younger than I imagine you are. Because if I put a clock on the amount of work that you've been doing.
Oh, by the way, there's something I didn't say. I've studied mass communication. I'm not like my boss.
Umesoma kumshinda na bado yeye ni boss wako.
And I still earn more than you.
We said the same thing. We said the same thing, you know. What's that thing about when KCSE results come out, the C students are going to be hiring the A students in a few years? You know, that's how it goes, I guess. Exactly.
Amen.
That's true. President would agree, but you always hire people that know more than you.
Oh. Just in case you didn't hear what he said. Hire people who know more than you.
Always.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Let's get right into it. So, Tim, I have a question for you. This is your 3rd year on Coke Studio Africa, and having been here 3 times now, working in Kenya, and having traveled to other parts of the continent developing this content, I want to know how you find Kenya as a filming location and destination. How competitive, how attractive are we? How easy are we to work with? How difficult are we to work with? What have you learned about the local industry having worked here these 3 years?
I think the one thing about Kenya, can you hear me at the back? If I don't have a mic, oh, we need it for the web. Yeah. Kenya, the one thing that really strikes you, or when you work in Kenya, is the attitude of Kenyans. There's a willingness to go the extra mile. There's like a willingness to make an impact, to learn, to make excellent quality content. So one of the things that I always look for when I'm looking for people that I want to work with is not always experience. It's not always qualifications, clearly. It's an attitude. And you find that in Kenya, you are actually quite spoiled for choice in that attitude. Because there's also, that I found in the nature of people here, there's quite a chilledness, like a chilled vibe, which can be a good and a bad thing. But it comes with a humility as well. So there comes with this humility where you could be working with someone who's, really achieved a lot in the Kenyan space, but is, humble enough. Unlike Arthur, obviously, but like, humble enough to learn and push and grow. I think there's a certain lack of experience in Kenya. If we're going to talk honestly and openly, which I think is...
this is a very safe place now. We're all friends in the room. We're friends on the internet as well. So please, feel free.
Cool. I think there has been, with some of the other markets in West Africa, South Africa, there is a lack of experience to a certain degree. But that only comes from exposure to certain things. It comes from the industry sort of still growing. But within those confines, what comes out of Kenya is remarkable. Some of the best productions, I think Coke Studio is possibly the most widely distributed television show I've ever worked on. The quality of this show is definitely in the top shows I've ever worked on. Arthur mentioned it, I've produced all the, or creative directed all the MTV Africa Music Awards, all of them, and I think the best show we've ever done was in Nairobi, Kenya. So those kind of statistics count for something and mean something. I work in quite a strange space of, I'm a bit of like a hippie, so
oh man, I couldn't tell.
That
it's Sunday. It's Sunday.
Sorry,
It's Sunday.
Sorry, my bad. My father is a preacher, was a preacher, so I recognize that. But there's something about an attitude of a country, and that I think is Kenya's biggest point. There's a welcomeness, a willingness, and with that comes unlimited potential.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Eugene, having worked on this and being the series director of the show, there's people here who are directors of shows or who are willing to get into that or work with directors of shows, and I want to know what key things, what's important for you. What kind of environment do you need to pull off the best quality of episodes possible? And how have you found in Coke Studio Africa, working in Kenya, working around Africa, what has been favorable about the environment in creating the show for you?
I'm actually going to tie my answer into what you asked, Tim.
All right.
And I'm not going to talk from my perspective, but I'm going to talk from the voices that work around me on a daily basis, which is my Kenyan crew. The things they find different and important, I guess, is the first, and I think the most important thing, and they always harp on it, is preparation. They are taken aback by the amount of preparation that we put into Coke Studio. So my guess is one of the cornerstones as to why Coke Studio, I guess, is successful and is deemed to be of high quality is the preparation that goes into it on all levels. And that kind of astounds the crew sometimes. I generally spend 3/4 of a day in my week putting together what I think the performances should look like. But I put it down on paper and I publish it. My camera team, when I show it to them to give them an idea of what it is the performance might look like, what are people wearing, what the lighting state might be, what color palette we're using, I'm astounded by the fact that there's that level of preparation. So I'm guessing in terms of what I find interesting in Kenya is things I normally take for granted working in places outside of Kenya don't exist here. So preparation, first and foremost. Tim will also tell the story, and he does it often, where he says, Coke Studio 2018, although we're recording right now, started as a discussion in Feb this year. So the planning for the show started in Feb. And I think what we're imparting to the crew is, if you prepare sufficiently, and you have an idea of what the show's going to look like at the end, the middle bit, which is the actual shoot, becomes that much simpler. And I'll say this to, and I've said this to directors at SuperSport as well, working on other programming. I mean, even Arthur, you commented the one day as well. It's like it becomes easier and manageable if you prepare. So that's the first one. Coming back to your question on what are the big moving parts, as it were.
That's correct, yeah.
Technically. Understanding the gear you're working with and knowing how to manipulate it in a way that gives you what you want. More often than not, I witness people around us being not only challenged, but governed by their own gear. So they pull it out, not know it well enough, and therefore are dictated to by what they where they find themselves. And I think one of the big changes we need to have is we need to dictate what that gear needs to do rather than the other way around. So choosing the right tool for the job, understanding how it works, choosing right cameras, lenses, lights, all the usual stuff we know is paramount. And it forms part of planning. The other, I think, big difference in what the guys find interesting is the way we approach, on Coke Studio especially, media management. Is there anyone here that works with the camera that hasn't lost footage before? I didn't see any hands go up. Mine didn't either. So having spent this much time in the industry, putting together a proper plan when it comes to media management is also important. A show like Coke Studio has many moving parts. We shoot in many different places at the same time. Managing all of that's really important. I can go through a list of 1,000 of these, but I'm assuming some of what I'm going to say today is going to come from specific questions. So I'm not going to go through the list of 1,000. But in terms of what makes a show like this successful, planning, know your gear, know your show. There's another instance where I see shows being made and it evolves as it's happening, which can't be the case. So people shoot in the hope that, we'll get to the edit and we'll put this together and it's going to look in a certain way. Does not work.
All right.
So that also goes back to planning. And those are kind of the headlines. So I'm guessing as the afternoon progresses, we'll have more specific questions and we can hone into those. But for me, those are pretty much the headlines.
Can I say something? I know there's like a structure, but we don't, we're freestyling, right? Is that cool? Because I think, one of the things when you've been lucky, and I love the way Carol phrased things like, I've had the opportunity to do this, I've had the opportunity to do this. And I feel that when you've had opportunities, you have to share the learnings you got from it, because other people can learn from the things you've been lucky enough to experience. Just on the planning point, just to hammer it home as well, that for me, one of the biggest lessons I learned at MTV, and I've been making content for a long time before I worked at MTV. The cool thing with MTV is you got immediately mentored by international MTV people. So you'd work with the guys from the UK, from Europe, and from the States, and they would teach you their production things. So if I can pass on some of that as well, the biggest lesson for me was planning as well, because we used to go, same thing, we'd go shoot, and we would make great content. We'd go to an event and kind of be like, let's just figure out what's happening there. Because you're creative, you're like, I can pull it off, and you will pull it off. But the lesson was, have a running order, and this can be for an insert, a 3-minute insert for a show, this can be for a half-an-hour show, a 1-hour show, a 2-hour film. Have a very defined running order with itemized numbers, a description of each piece, a duration plan for each piece. The durations must add up to the final duration. And even when you're doing something like an interview or a vox pop, have that scripted. So as the director, I'm doing a vox pop on the street. I just want to know, what do you think of, Waiki Benda from Uganda? What do you think of him? I've already written the answer that I want from the people. You know what I mean? Like, it's scripted. It's entirely scripted. And the first reaction to that was like, it takes away the magic. It takes away the spontaneity of the work and the creative work that we do. But to Eugene's point, you can't make something on the fly. To challenge that, but to build on it, you can make something on the fly, but have a plan. And if on the day when you're shooting, you're like, I don't want to stick to my script anymore, I can feel something else happening, you can go with it, but you've got the backup and the security of a plan that's planned. So if all else fails and everything goes wrong on your shoot, you just stick to your plan, you paint by numbers, and you guaranteed success. So like, either way, for me that was the biggest lesson. I just had to jump in there because I think it's a really good point.
All right, thank you. Yes, I appreciate that point very, very much. Thank you. Being in content creation myself. Yeah.
So one really quick one. Tim and I both worked for a boss back in the day who had a saying that I'd like to share. He called it scripted spontaneity. You want spontaneity? Script it. And that's kind of the mantra that I've lived by for many years, and it works.
Okay. All right, thank you very much. Caroline, I have a question for you. So you very briefly described what a line producer does. I want to take this backwards, right? So Coke Studio Africa 19 begins. And the series premiere is wonderful, and you have people gushing about it and saying, oh my God, that was such a wonderful episode. I can't wait for the rest of the season and see what we have in store. I want to know, when that successful episode comes out, what was your role in it? What is it exactly that you did to facilitate that? And how many, I just want an idea of how many people are working under you to make your vision come to pass.
All right. So I think Coke Studio in itself is a production. So everybody in the different departments, they're all under production. But the team that works under me is about 15 people who really facilitate and liaisons between the production and the different departments. That's the technical and the logistical department and the creative department. So from the beginning of the season, there's a lot of prep that goes into it. And like Eugene says, prep is what matters. If you get it right during the prep, everything is gonna be seamless. So in the prep, you identify, of course, we already have our creative, executive creative director team, who also has a team that works under him. And we have Eugene, who also knows what team needs to work under him, and we help him to source. And Arthur is also responsible for his team that he puts together, that has worked with him in the industry and just come to support him on this project. And Wes also has a team under him, which is basically the technical team, the camera department. And what we do as production is to make sure that the people they want, either they tell us the people they want and we find them, or they know the people we want and we talk to them about what the project is about, what is expected out of them, what the duration of the project is going to be, and what is required, right? And we run the back office. Obviously, that is money. Make sure people get paid on time, they report on time, they understand what is required from them every day, the schedule is out on time, you know, and they have the right script, the right document is circulating in the week. We all understand who's coming in terms of artists, and then we all just work with the different departments to understand what their specific requirements are for that week, and we make sure that the information is disseminated. We also just ensure that we pay attention to the deliverables from the clients, because there's obviously things that we have to consider. Just besides, there's a lot of stuff that is required to be delivered. So there's the TV show, then there's PR, there's marketing, there's digital, and everything we do, we have to make sure we feed to those departments and time and the right thing. So we just ensure that there's a lot of communication that happens, that goes back and forth, making sure that are we understanding what they want? Are we getting it? Is the client getting it? Are they happy? Is it doable in the span of time we have? Do we have the money for it? Yes, we do. And how do we move the money around to accommodate something that is critical for the show? So yeah, all of it is anyway. Yeah, so that's really it. So I think being in production, you have to, the skill set that you require is discipline. You have to be highly organized. You have to understand the creative vision, and you have to have work plans and workflows, and you have to make sure that every department is talking, because we are interdependent, and we support each other as well, so that when the moment I know Wesley is going out to the field tomorrow, he needs to talk to team to understand, okay, these are the things we are delivering. I mean, the production is facilitating the location requirements. He's making sure the talent is available. Eugene is making sure that the technical team have what they want, the equipment they want, and they'll be able to achieve the shots that they want. So we talk to each other all the time, and there's just really no rest for production, really.
I mean,
we work around the clock, but we sleep anyway.
Yeah, I was actually just going to ask about that, because you look like you could go for many, many, many more weeks of this work, and it sounds so daunting to do.
We are passionate about it. That's why we're still standing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And sleep is the cousin of death, to quote Nas.
Don't do it.
Don't do either. I have a question for you, Arthur. We don't know, at least I don't know. I don't think the people in the room know what the scope of this next season of Coke Studio Africa is going to be like. I just want an idea of, you being in talent management now, how many people do we expect to see? How much talent in terms of numbers do we expect to see during this next season?
So this season we are featuring 6 countries, and in each country we have 4 artists, plus a big break, so 5. So that is 6 times 5 is 30, plus we have 3 nights coming